This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 640. Unbelievable. With Gavin Campbell, recorded on March 20th, 2025. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios. And here in a really bizarre weather, Bellevue, Nebraska, we had, Gavin, we had rain, then we had thunder. We had a thunder ice storm. I have never seen one of those in Nebraska. It was literally pelting us with ice, and then you could see lightning in the background. Have you ever experienced anything like that before?
Yeah, we're getting some weird weather too. So I've seen something like that before. Even like about an hour ago, we were getting some. Yeah, we were getting. Well, no, we were getting some snow, light snow. Just dropping down. It's been raining all day, but yesterday was like 18 degrees Celsius.
Yeah.
So I was out there in my shirt and stuff, enjoying the weather. Right. So it's some weird weather going on.
It was 79 degrees Fahrenheit. The day before, then winds came in, rain, ice pellets, snow. Now we didn't get here in Bellevue, only got an inch or inch and a half. Omaha got 4. And so when I drove to work this morning, it was pretty, like, there was a lot of snow on the side of the roads, Now it's 45 now. It got up to about 50 or 55 Fahrenheit. A lot of that melted already. So that's the beauty of the spring, right? So anyways, crazy weather. Thunder snow is the craziest. Like, if you've never experienced that, it's snowing and then you hear the thunder and then the snow just dumps. And it can snow an inch an hour at that point. So anyways, having some bizarre weather here. Hopefully you are safe where you are at. And we'll post this show with some world-class show notes at theaverageguy.tv. Big thanks to our Patreon subscribers. For those of you each and every month doing that, thank you. We just have one $5 plan. If you want to join that team, you can head out to theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. And then big thanks to those who are using the affiliate link out there at theaverageguy.tv. There is on the page, there's a little red, it says this site benefits from Amazon purchases. Click on that. It'll just take you to Amazon, and then it benefits the site. So if you want to try that, head out to theaverageguy.tv. Click through it. Doesn't cost you anything. Appreciate it when you do. Big thanks to Jeff C., who joined me 2 weeks ago. Last week, Sarah's birthday. We had a whole birthday weekend, Gavin, for the missus. Are you kind of doing, it seems like birthdays now are going days instead of a day, right? Are you having that experience, or are you guys just staying with the day?
Well, since in my 20s, people were having birth weeks, and they had and they gave you the guilt trip if you skipped any event during the week. There would be like one night could be dinner, and and they just figured each event would have a different group of people so they can cover all their friends. So, yeah.
We did Saturday. We had a big party Saturday. The kids came over. Weather was nice. We grilled some, we fried up some lumpia. And it was delicious. By the way, handmade fried lumpia was good. Made some beef bulgogi, and then Sunday was I took her out to dinner. I took her out for dinner for her birthday, and then her birthday was really Tuesday. Anyways, appreciate you guys giving me the week off from that. We celebrated her birthday, and then Gavin, before we dive into your stuff, I mentioned the weather. I swear, like the lights flickered, I don't know, a dozen times, and I kept thinking, I get to pull the generator out. Like, this is what I did this for. And I stayed home from work just for it. I was going to be the hero, right? I was going to wheel out the generator and plug it into the house and flip the breakers and start it, work from home while my generator's buzzing away. I got a big gas tank for it now. And of course, did I lose power? No, 170,000 people in the Bellevue, in the Omaha Metro lost power. You think this guy lost power? Not a chance.
If you didn't have the generator, you would have lost the power for sure.
For sure, I would have. If it wasn't ready. No, right on. I basically guaranteed that I'm never going to lose power again. It will. The lines will come off the poles, fall on the ground, be flapping around. I'll still have power for some reason.
Somehow,
Right?
yep.
Yeah, you're like, oh, the line guys will come out. They'll be like, "Hey, I don't know how you still have power, but you do. We need to shut it off for a minute." And then they'll be like, "Nah, we can do it live." I spent all this money. Turn the power off.
I know.
Anyways, meanwhile, my friends out in Westo are all complaining. They thought they're going to be without power for days. And it's like, well, you can come over to my house if you want to. It'll be fine. Anyway, so if you ever want to guarantee that you don't lose power again, spend $1,000 or whatever I spent, probably $1,500 when all was said and done, on getting a generator and setting it up to the house. So anyways, we're going to spend a little time talking about that a little bit later. You've been working, though. You've always got some home automation stuff going on. So bring us up to date. Give us some ideas. You've installed some new stuff. Maybe hot water heaters involved in this.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's a water. I always call it a hot water heater. It's supposed to be hot. It's a water heater. What'd you put in?
So recently I had to change out my water heater. I threw in, I was on a contract before. I inherited that with the house, and like up here, they'll put you on a contract and you're paying for it. And I've had that house has had that
like
water
monthly for the unit. And then if it breaks down, do they just replace it?
They just replace it and stuff. But the unit I had was many years old, and when I did the math, we ended up paying we didn't, but between the various homeowners, ended up paying about $8,000 for this water heater.
Oh boy.
Right. Just because it's on a contract. So I said, you know what, I'm going to get rid of that contract. I'm past the end of the contract, and I put in a new water heater, and I bought a nice one, and I prepped when I was looking at water heaters, I looked for one that may have some automation in it or something like that I can tie in and everything. So I ended up with a nice Rheem water heater, and we don't have many choices out here, to be honest. They're one of the big brands out here. So I got the top of line one. We put that in, and then later on, I decided to add the Wi-Fi module to it. So what this does is it basically puts it online so you can monitor it. You can get, there's a water sensor that you can attach to it. You can adjust the temperature, set up some automations tied into Home Assistant, so if you go away on vacation, you can lower the temperature. So, you're saving some energy, and then raise it back up before you come back, things like that. So it was pretty cool to have that. I actually adjusted it yesterday. I noticed my water wasn't as warm as it should be, so I just went on the app and I just turned it up a bit, and it's now a little warmer, and I like that. I like having control. I like having notifications, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So
is it 100% electric, or is it gas?
No, mine's a gas one. Okay. The electric part though is the blower motor, I think they call it. The fan.
So is it a hybrid? Is it a hybrid?
No, the water is heated through gas.
Yeah.
But it has some electricity to run a fan and start the pilot light if needed and stuff.
Oh, okay, right, for sure. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Then PSA, even electric or gas users, you can always turn down your your water heater has a switch on it, and you can go in there and turn it all the way down when you go on vacation. Just remember to turn it back up when you get back. Right. Sometimes we think, it's super easy to do it on the app when you go, right, as well. But I'm assuming you tied it into your home automation through Home Assistant.
Of course.
What do you get through Home Assistant?
For Home Assistant, you get access to adjusting the temperatures. You get access to the water sensor or any alerts like that, right? So it's very basic. It's a water heater. There's only so much to it, right? However, the module that Rheem has really, for lack of another better word, sucks, right? To be honest, it was a pain in the ass to get online for some reason onto my Wi-Fi, and it was almost like the last desperation attempt. And I was like, if it doesn't work, I give up. And I just rested my phone right on top of it, and I walked away, and then I heard bing, it was online. I'm like, how the heck? So it's like I had to have my phone right next to it. So since I got it online, I never made the mistake to make it fall offline again after that. But I know there's a community out there of people that have created an ESP32 device that they can tie into their water heater and control it. It gives them more control, more power, and it's all locally hosted. I can't remember the community name. It's easy to find. But of course, that device doesn't work with my version of the Rheem water heater, so I couldn't go that way.
Yeah.
So I was stuck with their module. But I mean, for now, it works. It does what it says.
Why do you think that is? So, it seems like the major manufacturers, we're seeing this in the car world too, where the GMs and the Fords and they're coming to this automation idea, and it just takes them longer. There's been certainly, when you think about furnaces, water heaters, those kinds of things. I mean, those manufacturers have been making those things for 1,000 years, right? Why do you think they're so bad at the automation piece of it? Do you think they just don't understand it? Do they not want to understand it? Do they subcontract it out to the cheapest? And I know you don't know, but I want to speculate for a second here. Why do you think they're so bad at those? Because they're never very good, right?
Yeah, I just think they probably think it's a cost more. It costs them more than it will bring in for them. I mean, they probably think people are going to buy our water heater anyway. If we make it smart, we got to pay for servers. We're going to have to pay for development. We're going to have to pay to maintain an app. All that other stuff, and that's ongoing costs that they're losing out on. Right, because they're not going to add a subscription to my water heater now to pay for this. So for them to maintain this server, and then they probably look at the number of people who actually use it, and they could say, I'm probably one of 10 people that probably use it. Yeah. So they're keeping that server on for me and 9 other people probably, right? So it always seems like the automation side of these appliances are like an afterthought in a way.
Yeah. Well, when I had my furnace replaced, or it was really the air conditioning part of the furnace, right? Hired an old school guy, old HVAC guy, old school, I should say. And I said, hey, could you put in a Nest thermostat for me while you're doing this? And he goes, no. It's like, what? He's like, yeah, no, we don't do those. And I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. He goes, I don't like them. He personally goes, I like to set the thermostat. And he goes, we have too many calls where we go back to Nest homes where the customers don't really understand. I mean, they bought a Nest because they thought, oh, this is going to be super cool. And then they don't really understand what they're doing with it. And they're always right, and so I kind of wonder, that industry, I think it's going to take a lot longer for HVAC and the, plumbing stuff to catch on. I mean, certainly there's some of this stuff you can get a faucet that's
smart. Yeah,
a smart faucet, right? In some of these areas, but they don't seem to be catching on.
I think the older generation, especially in the HVAC industry, they just don't understand it and they don't like it, right? My neighbor is in HVAC, and when I moved in, the same type of thing. I was like, I'm putting in an Echo B. He's like, why? Just get a standard one. I'm like, because I could do this, this, and this. Yeah. And he's like, but why do you want to do that? And then I started telling him some of the more advanced stuff. When you start putting in the sensors, when my fireplace turns on, it only heats, based on certain rooms, et cetera, and how it got smarter. So when he realized that his clients were installing Echo Bees and stuff like that, he actually calls me to come and program it and explain it to them. Yeah. Right. Because I have to tell him, do not put the sensor next to a door. It's going to throw it right off, stuff like that.
Yeah. I asked Sarah about a Nest, like, hey, is it time and she's like, absolutely not. Like, do not. And she's pretty, she's been pretty patient with some of the home automation stuff I've done.
Yeah.
Now with the furnace. We have a fairly basic programmable, heat, cool, fan, degrees up, degrees down, hold. Like, it can't be that much. It's fine. She doesn't want anything else. So it's, if I were gonna do it, do you have a Nest? Do you have a Nest in your Ecobee is what you said, right? So did you have to run new wiring when you put that in? Because I'd have to run the 5-wire or whatever it is to get it.
When I put that in originally, no, I didn't have to run new wire because you had the module that would bridge a couple wires. But later on, I tied it in with the humidifier. And for that, I needed to run a few new wires. So I just reran a new 8 by whatever wire up. It was easy enough in my place.
Yeah, you feel like you're running Cat 6 cable at that point,
it was
right?
very similar to like just network cable, but luckily it was just like my basement's wide open, so I just had to fish the wire up. I didn't have to do much for it.
It's usually, I think in a lot, it's pretty easy. They don't want to, when they're putting the home, especially like a 50s or 60s or 70s home, they didn't want to make it hard. So they tried to get the thermostat maybe in the right place upstairs, but then they would put the furnace as close to the wire as they could in some cases, just so they didn't have to fish it. They don't want to fish it either, right? Through that stuff. So, hey, you'd mentioned ESP Home. What is that? Tell me about that.
ESP Home so basically you can buy these ESP devices, ESP32 devices. They're like mini computers. Right, really small computers, but you could do a lot with them where you can create your own sensors. They have all these modules you can plug into it. Now, ESP Home is kind of like, how can I explain this without I try to sound smart. It's almost like the programming language, a standard programming language that you can interface with it, with all these modules very easily without having to like write the code all over in C. You can load it up and then you can write it in YAML and just say, hey, I have this sensor and expose it as this, and then attach it to Home Assistant. And it's very popular. If you want to make your own devices, people use ESP Home. You can do almost anything with it. Right. And a lot of the devices I'm starting to get my hands on now, they're actually just ESP Home devices where somebody's done all the hard work for you and you just plug it in and add it to Home Assistant and it shows up. Right. But if you really wanted to make it yourself, you could buy all the parts, put it all together and add the code and everything. And it's not too hard when you know what you're doing.
Do I need to solder? On the site, there's a board with pins sticking out. Do I need
if
to
you're
solder?
Making your own devices, you'll get into the soldering, you'll get into the wiring, you'll get into that type of stuff. And that's if you're making your own devices. But if you're buying somebody's already ESP Home device, something pre-created, you're not going to have to do any soldering.
Yeah, you mentioned YAML, which is a pretty easy. I have found, anyways. YAML is basically just like a text file where you can make configurations in it, right? That's a pretty easy way to go, right? It's probably the easiest part of it, right?
Yeah. YAML, it takes a little to get your head around, especially like when it starts to get into indentation and then determining lists versus dictionaries and stuff like that. Like once you learn it, like I can look at YAML and it makes sense to me. But then I throw it to the co-host on Home Tech FM and I throw them some YAML. They're lost. They don't like to look at it. They hate to look at it. So it's a little different. I prefer to work in YAML for my automations where they like the GUI, right? Where with the YAML, I know I can copy and paste and do things quickly,
Yeah, it's not as hard as you think it is. I mean, it's a little more than a text file, but not that much more.
Yeah,
you just kind of got to know, though. Yeah, it's just some instructions. So you just got to know the order of operation and when things come in and what codes you're using to send to it, kind of deal. But in most cases with YAML, they give you some instructions. They're like, hey, they'll give you a file. Like, this is the way it kind of needs to be laid out. Then you just got to figure out the values, right? That you're throwing in there. Real quick, John wanted to know if the Rheem, was it the heat pump version that you got, or just gas only on that?
Just gas only water heater. That's the only one I got.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought you'd got. Ken says, just spun up a Home Assistant again this week. Eufy, is that how they pronounce it? Eufy doorbell automation to turn on a Lutron light. And that's a good way to do it. John says, every time Gavin comes on, I think I really need to focus on a Home Assistant. Yes, John. Listen, Home Assistant, it's a great, I can do it. Like I don't program it like you do, Gavin, but I've got the dashboards now are beautiful on this. If you can, Home Assistant literally updates more than Windows. So you got it right. I mean, they're just, you think that'll ever slow down?
Sometimes I wish it would, because they update a lot and there's a lot of things break when they do the updating, but you don't want to fall behind too far, because then if you have a big update, you're just going to have to fix them anyway. So I rather fix little things than have to fix a whole bunch of big things. Right. So, but if you're not a Home Assistant fan, I mean, there's other hubs out there. Like, just get into the, you can get Hubitat. I just got my hands on a Homey Pro here. This is a new hub that it's
good old Homey.
Yeah,
I haven't heard that in a while.
So I mean, there's other hubs out there that are really good as well too. I'm just the Home Assistant fan because of the flexibility.
Yeah. And you guys spend a lot of time talking about Home Assistant on Home Tech, right? Home Tech.
Yes.
.fm. I should have mentioned that at the beginning of the show. Of course, Gavin is doing Home Tech. We'll talk about that at the end. Of the show. So stay around for that. John wants to do it, but then he gets distracted, which is a thing that happens. Yep. Ken's looking for, he says, find a good resource on Home Assistant. Where would you start? If someone was like, hey, I want to just go to their website, do you think? I mean, they got a lot of stuff there, right? And it's not that hard.
It's, I remember my first time loading Home Assistant, and it was intimidating. I have to admit, trying to understand the entities versus devices.
True.
I came from Hubitat, and I was pretty advanced with Hubitat, right? Like, I was writing apps and drivers and stuff. But when I went to Home Assistant, it was very intimidating at first, especially when it discovered all this stuff and just threw it at you.
That's my favorite part.
Yeah, that wasn't my favorite part. People are always shocked. Oh, I found my printer, because that's usually the first thing you'll find, right? But I just signed up for, I follow a few YouTubers that reviewed it, and then every time I had a question, I just Googled it, and eventually I found the answers to all my questions, and stuff started making more sense, right?
Yeah, and I think you're right. You didn't mean it this way, but I think you're right. If you have a printer, especially an HP printer, which is basically network spamware, like somehow every device finds your HP printer, whether you like it or not, whether you want it or not. It's the most amazing thing. You can bring a new device in the house, and before you even turn it on, it's already printed to your HP printer. I don't know how that works, but so in Home Assistant, it will find those devices very, very quickly. Then you can kind of go in and mess around, set up some of the dashboards, work with some of the, and I don't know what they would call them, but the measures, the switches or the dashboard, the percentages,
the meters and stuff like that. Yeah. The tiles, you add different tiles based on your device.
Yeah. Set up a tile, and then I have a dedicated. I use my old Surface Pro 3 as the dashboard, which is perfect for it, right? And there's no lag, and a Ring is another thing that interfaces with it really, really well. So that works out. So if you're thinking about doing it, I mean, I have it set up. on my Unraid box. Yeah, and easy way to do it. You can set up in a Docker. There's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. So I liked it better than I liked Hubitat. I thought it was easier. Just me.
You thought it was easier?
I did. I thought the setup and I felt like the dashboard setup was better and easier. That's what
they look better for sure. I find.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I always wished that Hubitat would have spent more time on their UI. Because that's what I wanted. I wanted the Home Assistant UI. Now you can do both, right? I could have the Hubitat doing some things, but I could also be displaying that through Home Assistant, right?
Yeah, there's a Hubitat link app that kind of will expose all the Hubitat devices into Home Assistant, and then you can use their dashboards and stuff like that. Yes.
Yeah. John says, Ken, he says, yes, Home Assistant easily finds all my stuff. I've dumped everything into the main dashboard that I can see stuff, but I haven't made too many dedicated dashboards or really done much with the automation. John, I have one dashboard. That's all you need. For me, I just have one dashboard, right? I've got all my humidity and temperature sensors for the cigars. I've got a little weather thing. I have all the lights and switches in another section. And then I have all the Ring battery things, how much those are charged, and the ink sensors for the printer that sits right behind me over here. That's all you need. And actually my car has there's a Subaru integration with Home Assistant. And so it tells me car's locked, which is great. I could get miles and, some of those statuses, but I don't. Do you have a car that's got that ability where you put it on a dashboard somewhere?
No, and it would be nice to be able to work with one dashboard, but I have probably like 500 devices attached to mine. So, and I'm not joking. Like I have
No, I
100
know.
Z-Wave, 100 Zigbee, but it's all broken down into by room and stuff. But the funny part about my Home Assistant, the guys always laugh about this, is it picks up my neighbor's stuff. And I'm always having to ignore them. So one neighbor has a car that broadcasts its tire sensors, and my Home Assistant keeps picking it up, and I can add their tire sensors to my dashboard if I wanted to, and give them a call and say, hey, you might want to put some air in your front left tire if you want, right? Mm-hmm. Stuff like that. I get my neighbor's water heater. Not water heater. I get his water meter.
Yeah.
Our water, we have smart water meters, and they all broadcast a signal. And my house seems to be picking up various neighbors' ones. So I see when people are taking showers or running their water or whatever, so it does find everything.
Now, to be clear, you're not watching when they're taking a shower. No, they're taking one.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes. To be clear. Yes. There's a big difference there.
No stalking going on here. We want to be really, really clear about that. You might have an opinion on this. Ken asks, he went with the Home Assistant OS based on the website recommendation. Is a Docker much more of a headache? Also, there's an option for using a VM for it. Your thoughts on setting that up for Home Assistant?
If you're gonna self-host your own Home Assistant, VM is the way to go. It's top down the easiest way. Docker, yes, is easy, but the thing with the VM is certain add-ons spin up their own little Dockers in Home Assistant, so you can't really have a Docker in a Docker. Whereas if you had a VM, it kind of does it in there, so you don't have to install another Docker to be your MQTT server, for example. Mm-hmm. It would all be built into Home Assistant, and so much easier that way. Yeah. So go the VM route if you can.
VM and Unraid is a great way to do it. John's doing it that way.
That's how I do it. Yep.
It's great way to get it done. Easy way to do it. Good reason to have Unraid. You're gonna pay a little bit for Unraid these days, but not a bad way.
Well worth it
to get it done. Hey, we talked about plant moisture sensors for your grass, but are you doing it indoors as well? How are you doing that?
I started to get into this. So the guys at Apollo Automation sent me a few devices, and one of the devices was moisture sensors was for indoor plants. Now the problem is they're battery powered, and I really wanted to test these out, but the problem is I didn't really have any plants. So, my neighbor actually gave me a plant for Christmas. So I was like, great. And then, I purposely got in an argument with the wife so I can buy another plant for her as a gift. So now we have 2 plants, right? So I put the sensors in there and I'm playing with it, and it's really cool. So the first thing she said after 2 months is she said, hey, the plants are still alive. And I said, hey, the sensors work. Because they notify me whenever the moisture it needs to be watered, and I water them. So
do you actually then do you go right away and water the plants?
Well, if I don't go right away, then I kind of forget. Yeah. But I'll see it. I have it on my dashboard that, hey, your plant needs water, and I'll go and I'll just throw a cup of water in it, and everybody's happy, and the plants are still alive.
Did you have to change anything, or does it give you some opportunities to set different moisture levels on that? I threw that Apollo automation link in the chat, by the way, but
so the sensor kind of you can configure the sensor. It has some options in that. I just configure it 0 to 100, right? And then my automation just says if it drops below 40% or something, then send me a notification, something like that, right? So it's a combination of the sensor and an automation and Home Assistant.
Let me see if I can bring this on screen because these look ridiculous. Is that what we're talking about there?
Yeah, so that's the USB powered one, right? So that one you would plug in, but they also have a battery version, right?
Oh, and did you go battery or did you go plug in?
I went battery because where the plants are don't have a power near it. But as you can see, these are your an example of ESP home devices too. They are actually ESP home devices, right? But if you look at that bottom picture there's one a temperature probe coming out of it, right? So that's kind of cool because it's not only doing the moisture of the soil, but you can put that probe in the soil and get the temperature of the soil too. Some people have a need for this. I don't know what they're growing, but whatever it is, they may have a need for that, right?
I'm sure it's medicinal and whatever.
Yeah, I'm not judging.
It's legal here in some states, so it's okay here. Not
Some
Nebraska,
states, yeah.
but it's legal here in some states.
But yeah, they're really cool devices. They just recently released a temperature probe one where it's kind of like what was the barbecue one we use? I'm having a meter. It's similar to that, but it has a single probe, and it's similar to this where you can stick it in food and you attach it to like the side of your oven if you want, and it will ties into Home Assistant and notify you of the temperature of your food or stuff like that. That's a good way to do it. I have it on my basement freezer actually, so I have it. It's got a magnet built in. I stick it on the side of the freezer. It's a thin little probe that goes into my freezer, and it tells me, if my freezer loses power and or whatever, I will get notified.
Yeah. As you're talking about that, one of the things that I worked on, so like with the meter, one of the common problems is they're Bluetooth driven. And sometimes you got to have another, even with meter, you have the probe in the meat, and then you have a wood block that's got to be close. And then that's sending a USB signal out. You got to have something close by, right? And so oftentimes I take my phone up there, or down here, I've got a device that just barely reaches it. But the other day I was thinking, I've got actually the Mower data box that kind of expired on me. It's got a Bluetooth sensor on it. And I actually loaded, I didn't think about this. They make an x86 version of Android that you can load on a PC, and it looks like Android, but it's on a PC. It's x86, right? And you can take advantage of all those sensors and all those things you have. And so that box is actually a little bit closer to the grill than any of my devices are. And that got me kind of thinking like, well, oftentimes Android devices are underpowered. They're chronically underpowered, right? Yeah. And so and they don't have great sensors. And I thought, hey, I've got this, I've got this device that's overpowered for an Android unit. It's got a USB sensor in it, plus USB that I could add some things to it. The x86 versions of Android kind of have that. They're kind of anticipating you're going to bring some hardware to this thing. That blew my mind that all of a sudden I had Android running on a PC, and I was pulling in Bluetooth from all my sensors. I mean, it picked up Bluetooth better than anything that I had, because it's got a pretty good Bluetooth sensor in it. Did you ever thought about, Android as a hub controller on a PC? Have you ever thought about that?
No, I've never been an Android fan. Just I've never used it, but I do know what you're talking about because I tried to load that Android once on my PC just to emulate something because there was a specific app I needed to run. It never worked for me, so I gave up with it. But when I approach home automation, though, you have great ideas like this. You're like, hey, I could do this with this and that, and you get it set up for the first time, and you're like, awesome, this works. You're right. 6 months later, though, when it breaks is when you're gonna get the why did I do that moment, right? Why am I bothering? And so I've changed my approach to home automation to try and simplify things more, introduce less pieces in the chain to break in a way, right? And I wouldn't really go down that route anymore.
Yeah. Well, Bliss OS, and I threw the link in the chat. BlissOS.org is that version of Android for your PC. Okay. And I was actually, I put it on a USB drive, just flashed a USB drive with it, installed it, it's kind of easy to set up. I had to figure out the hardest part was to get the screen to stop rotating. I wanted it to be on I had a regular screen, and I wanted it to be this way, not this way, right? And so I had to work a little bit to get into the OS to figure out how to get the screen to not auto rotate. But yeah, it gave me an opportunity, Gavin, to kind of if I needed a Bluetooth receiver for, for this meter or for these things down here. Yeah. I put my Bluetooth receiver on the Unraid box that's running Home Assistant, and I pass that through to it so that it can all right, I can get the Bluetooth sensors that way. And that works out pretty well. But if you didn't want to run Unraid and you wanted to bring a bunch of Bluetooth sensors in, you could kind of bring it into your Android. And I think there could be some things you could do with it. Anyways, another alternative. I never thought about running Android on an x86 box. And I was like, oh, okay. Now it's gone. I wiped it out the other day. I wiped it out the other day to put, I was testing, I've been doing oh shoot, now that I'm on the spot, I won't remember. Hold on. Here it is right here. Open Media Vault. Have you ever messed around from a storage with the Open Media Vault?
I've heard of it. I've never messed with it though. Like I've heard of it.
Yeah, pretty basic. Like a lot of folks on the home server side of things were like, what do we do? What do we go with? And I've been trying a bunch of different ones. I have a Windows box that's serving as a file server right now, and I've messed up. Like it's messed up and it won't update anymore. And I'm like, do I want to rebuild Windows or should I be trying a different, I looked at some Linux distros and some other things for storage, and I came across Open Media Vault. Not bad. Not a bad implementation for it. Okay. Well, that's enough of my stuff. So you got the plant thing going. What else you got going on the home automation side?
One thing I picked up, or I didn't pick up, it was sent to me, I'll be honest. I finally got my electric lawnmower. I finally got one. Yeah, so every year I was looking at the price of these and I found they were too expensive, and especially after I finished mowing the lawn, I'd be like, oh, let me check the price again. So we talked to the guys at Navimo. We had them on the show and they actually sent me one. They sent it to me in fall though, so at that point, snow was starting to fall. I didn't really get to I didn't even open the box yet, but now spring's coming. I'm going to be breaking open that box and setting it up to mow. My neighbor even asked if I could program it to go across the driveway onto his lawn and do his lawn. But yeah, I got the Navimo i110. And I'm excited to get this out. I mean, as soon as I get it out, I'm going to be reviewing it on the show and letting everybody know. So that's one of the things I will be playing with.
We're showing it on screen right now if you're watching the audio version. That looks small. Is that bigger than it looks in the picture? I mean, is that a fairly hefty size?
It's a hefty size. The box was big. Like the delivery man kind of struggled to lift it in. I felt bad.
No, well, of course. Yeah, the other day I ordered something. Did it come UPS? But it didn't. Wasn't the regular UPS guy. He had a dolly, and he, put it on the dolly and brought it up. Here I'm looking at about a $1,300 lawnmower, but then it says subscribe for $105. You can subscribe now. I mean, I'm assuming you're just renting these mowers for a time period. Did you look into that at all?
I haven't looked into the subscription. Like, I'll be honest, they sent it to me. So,
right on.
But I mean, it depends on what comes with the subscription. Does it say on there? Because it would be cool if, you subscribe, and I would be okay with subscribing for something if they replaced it whenever it broke, or replaced the blades for me, or stuff like that was all included, right?
Yeah. Here, well, no commitment, cancel anytime. What's to keep you from starting the subscription in the spring and canceling it in the fall? I'm sure they're accounting for that, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure you're not getting a brand new one of these when you subscribe to it. Included annual blade replacements. That's kind of nice. Are the blades those just razor blades on the small little blades?
Small little blades. Yeah. Yeah. On a wheel. It looks like it's on a little wheel.
It says included Novimo Access Plus. So I'm assuming that's their app.
Probably. Yep.
App integration. A monthly 4G plan, data plan included, lifetime warranty. Wow. Hold on. Let's go learn more on them. Let's see if page not found. Oops. That's the subscription I get. Would you think, okay, $100 a month, $1,200 a year, it's really free financing, except you don't own it at the end of the year.
Well, that's the whole thing. If you're renting it, then after a year, you're pretty much paid it off, right? Yeah. But you'll still be paying the subscription. So, I mean, at that point, maybe just buy the thing, like in advance if you think you're going to keep it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So full disclosure, they sent it to you, right? But would you spend $1,000 on a mower if you were putting your own money out?
You know what? I probably would. Like, I have a fairly hefty yard, and it would be nice if I didn't have to worry about that. My only problem is I have a front yard and a backyard, so like there's the gate. How does it get through the gate? I would have to leave it in the backyard. I want to see how it works on my hill because they say, well, I have a little hill at the side. They say it should be able to climb that hill. I will see how it goes. I also got to worry about things of making sure it doesn't try to mow when my irrigation system's on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to think about things like that, So like I said, I haven't even pulled it out of the box yet. This is the spring I'll be doing it, and I will be finding out all the gotchas.
We'll have you back on in the fall and see how those kinds of things have worked out. Can you, with the gate, I imagine, so there's no other, like, it's completely gated. There's no way to get from your front to your back. So what you need is an automatic gate opener that integrates with the mower, right? When it turns the mower on, the gate opens up, right?
So they did mention when we had them on the show that was probably that's something they were working on.
Yeah.
So that would be a nice, like, if a little flap in my gate that would, open up when the mower can go through. That would be perfect.
Home automation or home assistant integration. Can you see it on the home assistant?
I believe there is, but I will find that out once I
set it up.
Yeah, once I get it set up.
You didn't even just put it like in the garage and fire it up just to kind of get the
garage was cold at that time too. I was thinking about it, but then I was like, the garage is cold, and there's a little bit more work to setting it up. You gotta run some power and set up an antenna and stuff like that, right? So
right on. Yeah, you got to set some boundaries and do. It's fairly involved. So you've probably got some setup to do with it. My front yard is zoysia, right, which is a really thick southern grass. Here in Nebraska, it goes dormant in the winter, so it turns brown. Everybody's grass is brown right now, though. We've had no rain or no moisture, seems like, since maybe July. But it's so thick. This is one of the things I worry about with these mowers is I'm not sure it could keep up. You always see them going across this really nice bluegrass or these fescues. I tell you what, man, zoysia is not to be messed around with. I mean, it is some thick grass. So I don't know. That'd be another one I'd have to check out on that to be like, well, if you could cut zoysia, because I also have a gate in the front it would need to go through. So I'd have to figure out that gate deal, or just go out and leave the gate open.
Or it might be just a case of I just put it in the front, press start, and let it go. Like, I don't mind kicking it off when I'm ready, as long as I don't have to walk around with it.
Justin says there are automatic. Yeah, I'm sure there by now. There's automatic mower gates available. I know from the Memo Motion and Husqvarna. So you should be able to. I'm sure those have been made. And then Justin says, we've had no real rain since December. He's down under, so they're in their summer right now, right?
Yes.
It's been a very dry summer, driest I can remember. Yeah. It's been dry here too. We could use some more rain. You have recently also gotten into self-hosting. Have you gone to the dark side?
I wouldn't say recently. I've been self-hosting for a while, right? So, just recently I did a few upgrades, but I mean, I have a rack in my basement. Yeah. I have Unraid on a server. I have a Dell R730 rack mount server on there. I got the whole Unify set up. So I have the Dream Machine. I have a PoE switch, 48 port PoE switch. I got some nice toys. My network, I have access points around the house. So I'm pretty heavy into it. I recently added, like this week, I did basically a tear down, rebuild, some upgrades of it, and that was like a whole day job. But I added a 16-bay NetStore drive rack, and this thing is sweet, right? It holds 16 drives in it. It's got 4 mini SAS connections to it. So it's all it is. It's just exposing drives. That's it on the screen right there. I don't know if that's the exact one. Because the one I have is just exposes the disk. That's the Thunderbolt one, right? So basically you can share it amongst multiple. I have 2 servers in this rack. So I have 8 of the drives go to one server and 8 of the drives go to the other server. You just plug them in the back. and it's awesome.
Well, they've got some interesting products here. Yeah,
they do.
Yeah.
So I made the mistake of mentioning this to Seth on HomeTech.fm, and he was going through their site and he was falling in love with some of their products of what they offer. But the thing is, they don't sell this in the US. Right? Like I ended up ordering these from somebody in the UK. And got them shipped to me, and I just love these products. The NetStore products, they just work. They're quiet, low energy usage, and simple. That's all I needed from them.
Well, Gavin, we are in the middle of a trade war. I don't even know how we're talking. I don't even know how we're talking to each other. How is it?
My bill. it went up 50%. Just let you know.
Yeah, you're the payment, the check. I'm gonna, yeah, for sure. I don't even know how we're talking to each other right now. We should be mad at each other for whatever reasons. I don't know how that's working out for you, but yeah, their product line. I mean, of course, they look a lot like Icy Dock on some of their drive enclosures, with a black formatted look, and then they've got some silver ones, of course, that are, I think, for the Mac crowd.
Probably, yes.
They kind of look that way. Yours is open, so it's just 16. You can just slide the drives in.
They're hot swappable. Yeah, okay. I can just swap them in. So 8 of them are dedicated to my on-raid server, and if a drive goes bad, I just pull it out and I put in another drive. Or if I just want to format a drive, I just pop it in and I can do a full clean of that drive. And then the other 8 I have dedicated to the second server. Like, you could split them up, so it gives you 4 ports on the back. So I just use 2 for my main server, 2 for my backup server.
And what's the cable? What are the cable you're using?
What do they call it? Mini SAS, something like that.
And are they SAS drives or are they SATA drives?
They're SATA drives.
Okay.
It's just the connection.
Yeah, for sure. So it's probably got a mini SAS connector in the back. No, that makes sense. So that's cool. Yeah, those are super cool. I'll admit, I've been spending a little bit of time looking at drive enclosures for some of the hard drives, and I've been kind of getting back into the Chia hard drive mining thing, and so yeah, it brought up. I was like, oh, there's some new offerings out there. This didn't come up, but it's probably because I'm in the US, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. What else have you been looking at?
In terms of self-hosting, I recently did a Wi-Fi upgrade in my house. So, if you're in the UniFi space, I have to give them credit, because upgrading my Wi-Fi could not have been any easier. So in my house, I have 4 access points, and they were running an old Wi-Fi, something like Wi-Fi 4, maybe Wi-Fi 5, right? And I said, let me upgrade it. And my choices were basically moving to the Wi-Fi 6 generation of devices or Wi-Fi 7 generation of devices. Well, Seth talked me out of going to Wi-Fi 7 because TJ's been having problems with it, their devices in there. And Seth said, the Wi-Fi 6 are proven, you can kind of just move up to there. So when it came to UniFi, I ended up just buying a few replacement access points. I didn't even have to rerun wires or anything. It was literally as easy as taking the old access point off, unplugging it, putting the new one back on. The mounts were the same, everything. Plugging it back in and then clicking adopt. And yeah, it was now upgraded. So, I mean, to upgrade my house to Wi-Fi 6 devices literally took me like half an hour or less, and I was done. I was kind of bored for the rest of the day. But it's I really like that, and now I have much better internet in my house, much more reliable. Devices don't drop off, stuff like that.
Yeah. UniFi, right? That's within the UniFi family, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you do some UPS upgrades? I mean, I've been talking, a buddy of mine, with the power outages we've been having here. A buddy of mine lost power yesterday, and he's like, we've been without it for 4 hours, and my laptop battery's about dead. My UPS gave up, and 3.5 hours ago. He's like, I'm going to have to go in. I'm like, dude, why have you not bought, I've been using the Blue Eddy AC 180. And actually that's $449. I think I spent $799 on it, and I think it's $449 right now, which, there's a lot of pressure on the battery pieces. Did you do some upgrades to your backup?
Yeah, so on the rack, I have a couple UPSs. I added an APC rack mount one, and I really highly recommend if you're running Unraid and for anything, put it on a UPS, because if it loses power, you're gonna have to like rerun it through tests of your parity drives and stuff like that, and you don't want that happening. I basically I don't need it to run a long time. I just want it so that if I lose power, after 10 minutes, it will gracefully shut down the systems. Right. And then it can run my networking and stuff for much longer if I really wanted to. But I just want to save the system. So, yeah, I added that.
I love these new solar generator batteries to use as battery backup, or to a point now where they're all 20 milliseconds or less cut over, which means you can use them as a UPS. They get longer because your UPSs they're lead acid, right? They're lead acid batteries. They don't last as long.
Yeah.
We're getting these lithium ion phosphate, I think is what they are. I could be wrong on that. LOP4, whatever it is. I'd have to look it up again. But they seem to, you can get thousands of cycles on them. Have you looked at that at all as far as using one of these solar generators as a backup instead of a UPS APC type device?
So you're talking about like the whole home ones?
Yeah. Well, they can be whole home. They've got some small, so mine can run all the computers here for about an hour instead of the 20 minutes, right?
Yes.
I could charge them with solar panels if I wanted to. I don't, but I could, kind of standpoint. And I think today, I bought 1,000, watt hour one that basically means I can go 1,000 watts for, I run about 1,000 watts down here. And so it gives me about an hour, right? Kind of works out. Just today, I was looking at the pricing. Okay. What I paid for that 2 years ago, I can now double that. So I get 2,000. I could go 2 hours without power for what I'm running here and I don't use it like a solar generator, so to speak. I'm not running solar into it, but it's a handy UPS backup.
Yeah, and I haven't. When I looked at the price of stuff like that for the house, it got expensive.
It does,
and I have to admit, in our area, we don't lose power often.
Okay,
very rarely. And I mean, I've been here about 10 years, and the longest I probably lost power was 2 hours. Once, and that's really it. And usually in that 2 hours, I just go hang out with the neighbor next door, and we just hang out and do whatever. But I've never really had a need to do something much more expensive.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? When I had 4 UPSs, right? Running, backing up, I had one backing up 2 computers, another backing up 2 more. I think at one point I had 4, 5, or 6 PCs down here. And I started thinking to replace those, I had the hefty ones that were a couple $100. And then I thought, okay, I have 3 of them. That's 600. I'm almost there with one of these. And they'll last a lot longer. So that was just my justification for it. Yeah, I spent $800. That $800 one now is $450. Thank you, Moore's Law, whatever that means, or whatever. While it seems like inflation is going up on everything else, solar generators and solar panels prices seem to be going down on those. Actually, I think the market's flooded with those. Now may not be a bad time now. I don't know about Canada, because we're in a battle. We're in a fight with you guys. Don't look at me wrong. But here in the United States, anyways, those solar generators are getting. You can find some pretty good deals on them, and they seem to have worked out most of the kinks on them. I think last time you were on, we were still on the Unraid version 6. It's now moved to 7. We're at 7.01. If you haven't 7.0.1. For you, I'm assuming you've upgraded. Have you seen any difference? Are you using anything? ZFS support, right, came with 7, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually only upgraded to version 7 maybe this week. I kind of gave them. Usually, I'm the first person to jump as soon as it's released. I just click update without thinking about it.
Yeah.
But then I started seeing some of the problems that were getting reported, and it kind of made me nervous. When you read the forums, of course, everybody with a problem will post in the forums, right? So then you get a little nervous. So I gave it some time, because there were actually one problem that would have affected me hard. So I'm glad I waited. But I upgraded. It went smooth. Everything's working great. So I give it it's safe to upgrade now. They're on 7.01, as you said. In terms of some of the changes, personally, I haven't seen anything like groundbreaking. I know ZFS was a big thing, but then when I looked into ZFS, it kind of went against what I was doing with Unraid, because it took you back to Raid. Like, you require same drive sizes and stuff like that. It had high memory requirements and things like that. So I was kind of like, I kind of like Unraid because I didn't have to worry about what the size of the drives were, other than the size of the parity drive. I could just slap in a smaller or equal drive and add extra space to my server if I wanted to. So I'm not a big fan of it, but then there are some people that love ZFS. And everybody's different. You'll have your use for it. It's a big thing.
I installed it. It didn't do anything different. It's still running. So,
and that's the good thing, right?
Yeah. No, it is all, I mean, it's been a smooth, and I updated I waited a little bit too, I waited about 2 or 3 weeks. Then I was like, okay, it's probably time to I haven't heard any major issues with it. Obviously, I'm not digging into the forums. I don't, I've got that in the Home Assistant on it, and we store some files on it, and so it's not like I'm using it hardcore. But that seemed like a pretty easy upgrade. Did you make the jump to the .1 jump already? The upgrade's out. Have you made that jump yet?
Well, that's the one I went
to. But,
that
was already out.
701, right? When I saw the 01 come out, I was like, all right, now it's time.
That makes sense.
It out. Yeah,
and that's good advice. I probably should have waited too. There's nothing I was going to.
It depends on how important the server is to you. That's the thing. If my server went down, my whole house runs off this server. Yeah. So I'd be spending quite a bit of time going to my backup server and migrating some stuff over.
Ugh. See, that's the thing. When you get all the way in on this stuff, and then one little piece breaks, then you're like, well, there went my weekend.
Yeah.
Right?
This is what I get paid for. Yeah. Here, honey, here's the credit card. Go shopping. I'm gonna be home.
I'll see you Sunday night.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll see you Sunday night. Hey, couple weeks ago, we spent some time, 2 weeks ago, I spent some time with Jeff C talking about the modularization of AI. Have you been messing with AI much, and you doing anything local?
Yep. So I do run. I have some local. I run Olama on my Unraid server. Okay. I picked up a couple video cards. So one of them was NVIDIA T4, and I have an NVIDIA P4. I got them for pretty good prices. The T4 was a lot more expensive, but I use them for running Olama and stuff on it, and they work really well. They only use like 75 watts of power. They don't have built-in fans, so I had to do some little modifications so it keeps them cool and stuff like that. But when it comes to the LLMs, I've tied them into my Home Assistant and my security cameras, and I've been playing a lot with that. So I did have them tied into Blue Iris at one point, where basically if Blue Iris got a trigger, I would send the photo over to the Olama and say, is there really a person in this photo? And the reason I did that is because sometimes when it snowed or rained, it was triggering my cameras, right? So basically I let the AI analyze the picture and say, yes, there really is somebody in that camera, right? In that photo. And then it would then send me the notification. So that's how I kind of tied it into there. I also did some other fun stuff just to keep myself busy, keep myself engaged with it. So my notifications, it will send it over to Olama and say, make a witty notification about this. And then, Home Assistant would then push a nice, funny notification to me. Like sometimes it could be mean, like it was, making fun of my neighbor's wife, going going to her car because they were parking their car in our driveway, and it made a height joke about her, and she is a smaller person, and I found it funny. I actually sent it over to my friend. I said, hey, got your wife on camera, look what it said. But it keeps me entertained, and I tied in with that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. So it interfaces pretty well with Home Assistant.
Yes, it actually is built in nice. So one of the things I did get was the Home Assistant voice box. They call it the preview edition. Mm-hmm. They call it PE. So I got that. The cable's not long enough to show it on the camera here, but it's their version of the A-Lady, etc. But it all runs locally. It integrates with Home Assistant. At this point in time, I can't recommend it. I'll just be honest. Like, I have it sitting here and I never use it, and the main reason why is because it does not work if there's other sounds playing in the background. So if I'm watching TV or something like that, my TV triggered it constantly. Or if I tried to talk to it while that TV, even if it wasn't loud, it would just keep hearing the TV and then start sending off a whole bunch of commands, you know? And those are things that the Amazon fixed on their devices. You know, when I talk to the A lady, the TV could be playing. She still hears me and filters it all. And they perfected that. Home Assistant has some work to do.
Perfect is a strong word. I still have some trouble sometimes in the kitchen when things are going, you know, when things are happening for it to understand me. But it's getting
better. Yeah, they made it better. But the Home Assistant one is like a step backwards for me. So I have it here to play with. It's tied into the Olama as well. So it can basically, if it's you can have it analyze your data and give you responses on that. You know, I mean, there's certain limits because I found out I reached the limits with the size of my house, because I think with every Quest it would take up all my sensors and send all that data over. So that, if I said, you know, what's the average temperature, what's the average temperature on upstairs, it would have all the data to make its answer based on that, right? But with the number of devices I had, I think I was running into the limits and it was causing it to crash. So, you know, and then to bump that up required much higher specs. I needed more memory on my server, and I wasn't about to invest in that, you know?
Yeah. We talked about LM Studios. You know, it's an application you can use on your Mac or PC. Download some of the open source LLMs to give that a try. And it's interesting, you know, the bigger ones. So 4 gig, 5 gig for most people, it's going to be about your max of it being able to run. I mean, you can download that just fine, but running your queries against that, you know, it's a whole nother. Well, you think 4 gig, that's actually not very big, to be honest, right? I mean, when you think of what we have available to us, I mean, I make video files out of 4 gig all the time. So, like, you know, but running that is very intense against those processors. And I've done a couple where it just comes back one letter at a time. Right. And you're like, whoa. And so you kind of think it leads you to kind of a false sense of maybe understanding these LLMs when you're like, oh yeah, no, you can just run these things. They don't really require that much. Well, when they're small, they don't. You know, but to your point, you're feeding it all this data. It's trying to bring that, you know, bring those pieces in. I have not had good luck getting LM Studio to use my video card, right? I've got a pretty nice video card. I need to do some work on it. You know, now on the Mac, it's integrated. So just uses everything and away it goes. It's super sweet on a Mac. That would, you know, that makes a nice integration for not for the Mac or not for the Apple intelligence stuff. That stuff's terrible. But the open source stuff is pretty good. I'm assuming the Olam is all using all their open source stuff, right?
Yeah, and I did load the deep DeepSeek modules and stuff, and I played with it. It was kind of cool to see the model thinking about your question, because it was displaying all the stuff. It said, okay, he's asking about this, so let me look into this. So it was like you got to see its thought patterns, and I thought that was cool because that was the first time I saw that side of it. But it was the smaller module I was working, and as you get the bigger ones, you get, you know, better answers, but you require more power. And one thing they're doing, like I have a Surface Pro, one of the new Surface Pro ARM PCs sitting here next to me, right? And they have these chips on them called the MPU chips now, and they're pretty powerful. And what they're doing is they're offloading some of this AI stuff to those MPU chips, so it's not using your graphics card, it's not using your CPU, it's using this new MPU chip, which is more power efficient, faster, etc., etc. And that's where I'm seeing stuff start to go.
Yeah. No, I think that's here to stay. I think we're going to see those on just about everything. What'll be interesting about AI in this area, and then we'll move on to something else. Everybody's like, we're sick of you talking about AI, Collison.
We could go to Bitcoin if they want, you know.
We could, for sure. We could. There's a lot to talk about on the Bitcoin side, but anyways, I think we're going to go back and forth. We saw the same thing with client server, where, you know, you would you would have everything processed locally, and then we started pushing things to the cloud, and then they started pushing things back to the endpoint, and then they started pushing it to the cloud. And I think in my time with computers, I saw that maybe 3 or 4 times where we pushed it back and forth, back and forth. We're on this first stage of AI where they wanted to control everything. Now they're thinking, hey, you know what? We need some power at the endpoint, right? We need some power on the edge, as they say. And so I think we're going to see the advent of more powerful computers, kind of, or things you can, eventually there'll probably be a NPU card that you can install that you could use in a PC to do that, or it'll be integrated into the board. Something
it's integrated for now. And I was actually on a meeting about that recently this week actually, and they were actually talking about that. They were saying that developers can now build in AI, and it's not running full modules on the NPU. It's like micro bots that they will load in their app, and it's good at one thing, but it runs locally on your machine.
No, right on. I think we're going to go back and forth. There'll be some figure out some stuff. Oh no, let's process it here. Oh, we're going to process it there. So I think we're in the early phases of that. Before we wrap this, one of my very favorite subjects, and I said we'd get to this, so I want to get to it. You are going to upgrade your electrical panel at your place. And I don't know what's gotten into me, but maybe it was doing this work with the whole home generator that I put in and all the wiring I did. And I got into the box. By the way, I had a contractor 10 years ago change out our service. We went from 100 amp to 150 amp service. I wish I would have done 200 now, but 150 amp service. I went in there and I was really thinking, oh, this is going to be a mess. And I pulled off the door, and it was beautifully wired. Maybe that's what got me excited about doing electrical again. It's been a long time since I've done it. You're moving from 100 to 200. Why are you moving? And why you do it? It's not cheap, right? I mean, everything's expensive in Canada, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I always wanted to move, but this was the first year I actually got the approval to do it from, the CEO of the house.
Oh, I got you.
Once she gave me the approval to do it, I was like, I'm doing this. We have the original panel from when this house was built, I think in the 80s, and it has sub panels off of it too.
Yeah.
Right. So I was kind of like, and they're fuses.
Yes.
Right. So I was like,
the screw-in fuse.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
You always get shocked with those things.
Half of them are the screw-in ones, and the other half are the pull-out ones with the I don't know how to explain it. It's but it's
screw-in fuses.
Yeah. So I was just like, all right, let me do this. Let me get this done. So, it was listening to your show too, made me make a few decisions, because I know you've been talking about this. So yeah, I went from 100 to 200. I figured, you know what? I don't have an EV now, but if one day I want to get it, at least I've taken care of this. I don't have to worry about amperage anymore. One of the other things I've added, and I'm having them install, is a whole home surge protector. And I just told the guy, I said, listen, I have so many delicate electronics. My light switches are expensive. It would be a few $1,000s to replace all of them if like I got hit by lightning or whatever. So he agreed, and he's putting that in. And then I added a transfer switch. I'm just adding a 30 amp transfer switch, something just enough to power the fridges and stuff like that. If I lose power, I plug the generator in, let it go, and I'm adding that. So the price actually wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Oh, good.
Right. When he gave me the price, I don't think I should have said this to him, but I was like, I wasn't expecting to be that cheap.
Well, that's good.
I think he caught me with the upgrade. I think when I added an extra thing in there, he probably marked that up a bit more.
You're gonna add sub panel for your rack?
No, I'm not gonna add a sub panel. My rack actually sits right next to it, but I'm gonna add a dedicated line for the rack.
Okay.
So I'll add a 20. I wanted to put a 20 amp plug right by the rack. Because right now the rack, for some reason, whoever wired this up, is on the same line as the bathroom upstairs. So when the wife uses her hair dryer, it blows that fuse. Right. So she will be happy once I get that fixed.
That's the drawback to old wiring, right?
Yeah.
Somebody just grabbed it. Is it live? Okay, let's put this on. Our bathrooms when we moved in here, they had no. I mean, they had electricity up to the lights, and then they'd have a plug on the light to you could for like I mean it was the 50s, right? Or it was the 70s when they replaced that. And so you start grabbing wire from somewhere. Okay, this will be good enough. If you're not thinking, most homeowners don't think about load, right? They're just kind of like, it's got electricity, it's fine.
I just need power.
This area is probably, I won't say it's overloaded, but I max it. It's pretty close. And I could benefit if I did the wiring again. I would spend some time thinking about getting dedicated circuits down here to this area, right? Just running a dedicated circuit. Well, good for you. I mean, I think that'll be an awesome upgrade. I'm kind of excited. I told you in the pre-show, I want to just come and watch them.
I want to watch them too. I just want to stand there, but I don't want to be their shadow. But I just want to sit there and say, why are you doing that? Like, I'm not questioning it. I just want to know what it is you're doing, right? He did come to do some planning work, and we were looking at things like where the ground wire is running and stuff like that. And I asked him a couple questions about it, just to learn about it. And he said it should be like this, and he showed me where it was, and I'd love to sit there and just shadow him for the day, but I can't.
It's great and I watch a guy on YouTube who out in New Jersey who does this on a regular basis. And in New Jersey, the electrical code, you can only put a 200 amp service in now. So no more. Awesome. They're just like, this is just the way it's going. The needs are. So typically he's upgrading folks that are putting charging units in for EVs, right? So they're upgrading them to 200 amps. But there's something about watching him rip out the old service that just makes me feel good. Like right, you're just like, get those wires, figure out where those wires are going, put it in, and then you're going from fuses to breakers, which, dude, like, it's gonna be a whole new world for you when it comes to.
Well, I can just flick things.
I was always shocked myself. Those
screw-in ones.
Yeah. You almost you have to be really careful with them because you can get your skin up close to the actual connector on them, and then you can get shocked. And it seemed like every time, not every, but I was shocking myself on those a lot. Both our old house in Plattsmouth when we first moved here, and then this house had screw-in fuses when we moved in. We did so I'm excited for you. I think that's going to be that is going to be awesome. Did you think, okay, and do you have a generator? I mean, you said you have a transfer switch, so do you have a generator to run the transfer switch? Or are you going to
don't have a generator yet. My neighbor has an extra generator, so if I needed one, he'd just throw me that one. I'd plug it in, right?
Unless he's using it.
He has an extra one, so he'll plug one into his. But I will probably get one at some point. Again, we'll see.
Yeah, now is a good time. There's the batteries and generators. There's actually a lot of competition for those right now.
Yep.
And with all the brand names, there's all kinds. Do you have Harbor Freight up there?
No, I don't think so.
Up there yet? Okay,
no.
But I'm sure you got some. You can go to Canadian Tire or whatever that store.
Yeah, right now we buy all Canadian, so I wouldn't buy from Harbor Freight.
Don't buy from you. Don't buy from you. You can't. You legally can't, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. We're on a buy Canadian thing right now going on up here. So
yeah. Tony says he's still in disbelief that you still have the panel with fuses, and here
a lot of people are.
They do. I hear not too many, but if you have I live in an older neighborhood, and most of us might have that or a sub panel. We think about power completely different now. I mean, the EV charging station at your house has changed the equation for most people.
I think so, yes.
Yeah. And you're just kind of thinking, I don't think most people really even knew how much power was coming into their house or why it was coming in. They're just like, no, it just worked. Most people never opened their panel unless they needed to switch it off for something or reset a breaker because the hair dryer sent things off. And I think this current EV work that we're all doing is really leading folks to be like, oh, okay, maybe I should understand that a little more, or maybe not. Maybe there's hiring an electrician to run a 50 amp service out to whatever and plug it in, and they just plug it in and get it done. I find it very fascinating. And the question for me would be, would I go to a 200 amp service if I was charging an electrical vehicle? I'd need to consult an electrician for that, to say, hey, 200 is what you really need to have, but could I get away with 150? I don't know.
If I'm doing the upgrade, the way I look at it is whether you went to 150 or 200, I think it's the same thing. They just replace something at the box, right?
Yeah,
like it's not costing me.
Well, and maybe the wire. It depends on the wire here, anyways. But
yeah, but for me, to them, they just come and they're taking off the old breaker and putting on a new breaker, and I think I'm now at 200, right? Like it's not whether I went to 150 or 200. I don't think it would have cost me a difference.
You're at 100 amp. I bet the electrical company will come and run a new wire for you.
As long as it doesn't cost me anything.
It depends on your jurisdiction and the way. You know, electrical companies are different. Oftentimes, the utility owns the line till it gets to your house, right? Yes. Where it comes in on the what do they call that thing? The mast is what they call it. Oftentimes, they own that wire right up to the mast, and then you own everything that connects out the mast.
I think for me, though, they don't have to do anything with the wiring. It's all done. It's a matter of just changing the breaker, or else they would have planned that already. So I think we're all good there. So I just went to 200, just future-proof myself.
Yeah. Well, you'll love it. You'll love it. You should take a before picture, and then I want to see a before and after, Gavin. Send them to me, because I love to see those things being replaced.
For sure. I will.
Okay. Sounds good. Hey, what's coming up on hometech.fm?
So like we talked about earlier in the show, I'll be eventually reviewing the Navimo lawnmower. So look out for that probably in the spring when the grass starts to grow.
The other thing next week, by the way.
Close enough. I might throw down
spring is today, isn't it? Or tomorrow or something like that?
Today is, I think, the first day of spring. But I actually may throw down some seed this weekend. Ooh. As much as it's cold, they also said, it doesn't hurt to throw it down early, because then the rain falls and waters it all and everything. So I might actually there's still some snow out there, but it doesn't hurt to throw down some seed.
You can throw it right on top of the snow, and actually the snow will pull it into the grass. Yeah.
So I'm planning to do that. So look out for the Navimo. I also, in the next few weeks, I mentioned the Homey Pro, the hub that I just got my hands on. I'll be doing some reviews of that. That one is kind of like a home assistant competition. It has all the radios. Every radio is in it. So I will see how I like it. I don't plan to replace my home assistant, though, but I'm going to take a look at it.
Yeah, I think Richard and Josh over at Entertainment 2.0 were looking, or they had been talking about Homey products for a while. So
yeah.
Well, cool. There's some thought out in the chat room to have Gavin as a service. We need somehow to figure out GAAS.
It's a joke in the Home Tech hub. So the Home Tech FM hub, when you sign up for our Patreon, you get an invite to our Slack channel, and people, use that as access to me, and they message me, and they've been calling it Gavin as a service. I'd answer their questions and help them out with their problems. And it's funny because sometimes I give them the most ridiculous thing to try. And as much as they don't believe me, they do it and they come back and they're like, I can't believe that worked. Right? Like somebody was having an issue with their Z-Wave antenna once or something like that. And I said, hey, plug it out of the USB port, put it on a little extension and plug it back in. Just trust me, just try this.
Yeah.
Right. And they did it and they're like, I can't believe that worked. And I go, yeah, I know. Sometimes the answers don't make sense, but just do it.
That is hilarious.
So that's where the Gavin as a service came from, is they kept calling it that.
Well, if you're new to this show and you haven't heard of hometech.fm, it's a lot like this show, except they actually know what they're talking about over there, where I'm just guessing most of the time. We
pretend to be.
It's a good lot more detail oriented than we are here. We just like to have fun talking about the tech, but they spend a lot of time, kind of like what you heard tonight, a little bit with some details on that. And check that out today, hometech.fm. And I just like it because this show originally was called Home Tech. So we changed that a couple years in and never looked back. Gavin, thanks for coming on tonight. Thanks for saying yes every time I ask you. I appreciate it. You're super fun to have here. And thanks for hanging out with me, man. I appreciate it.
Every time you have another guest, I was like, that could have been me. So when you did ask, of course, I said yes. Of course, I said yes.
I just listen. You have so much stuff. I just need to have you on more. So we'll figure out our way to have you on a more. I don't want to hog all your time. I think those guys get a little jealous over there at hometech.fm. I need, you know what? I was meaning to get a hold of TJ. It's been a while since I've had TJ on. So
oh yeah, he has some good stuff going on right now too. He'd have some good stories.
Okay. I will reach out to TJ this weekend and we'll get him on here as well. Can you hang tight for me while I close this up?
For sure.
All right, appreciate it. Hey, a couple reminders. If you want to join the Discord group, head out to theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Always great conversations out there. And that's actually where the notifications about the show moving around, the live show anyways. And just some helpful stuff. There's a few questions this week that got answered. Not a lot that you have to worry about, but some good deals and those kinds of things. It's a super friendly crew. Check it out, theaverageguy.tv/Discord. Don't forget the AverageGuy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from people that you know and you trust, and that's Christian. By the way, Christian's coming back, but he's having a baby. I mean, he's not, but his wife is. And so he'll be back. We're giving him some paternity leave, so he's got some time off. I said, hey, dude, just contact me when you're back. And so we'll have him back on the show in the next couple weeks. So I'm taking a week off next. I have a big conference next week, so I'll be out for that. So no live show next week. The 3rd, Ed Sullivan's joining me, has a new EV. You're going to be super surprised at what he bought, so you're going to want to listen live to that. Marv B is joining me on the 10th. Erin Lawrence is jumping back in here on the 17th. You know, she's got some great stuff. And then Mike Uyghur is back on the 24th. So that's a pretty powerful group. And then I got Mark Robson coming on the 15th to talk barbecue. It's the Home Gadget Geeks big barbecue and grill episode. You're going to want to be here. Gavin, do you do much barbecue grilling stuff? Do you do that?
When I listen to that show, I get
right afterwards.
Yeah, and I go buy all the good stuff. That's when I bought the meter block and everything after listening to all that show. And then I realized I gotta wait 12 hours for this to finish. I said, nah, I'm not, I'll just do some quick burgers.
You can set it and forget it. Just get a big hunk of meat and throw that thermometer in there.
I'm not forgetting about that meat. I'm gonna be sitting there going, is it ready yet? Is it ready yet? Is it ready yet?
No,
but yeah, no, I like grilling. Come warmer weather, I will be doing a lot more.
Sweet. Well, you'll have to tap into that as well. We are live every Thursday, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, although I may change that to 7. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. Well, I'll do some thinking about that. And we'd love to have you out here. Check it out, theaverageguy.tv/live. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new show. For those of you listening live, thanks for coming out. And for everybody else, we'll say goodbye, everybody.